The Teotihuacanos erected their earthly paradise to ward off the wrath of their gods. But to remain in their favor, they had to provide still more, even offering themselves as food for the gods. 1,500 years ago, the utopian metropolis of Teotihuacan basked in glory. The people who walked these streets embraced a life in which the common good was paramount. Harmony and tranquility reigned. But Teotihuacan also had a dark and sinister dimension. In 1983, archaeologists made a chilling discovery in a majestic structure known as the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent. What they found would redefine our perception of this ancient society. Carefully arranged in a mass grave were the crumbling remains of more than 200 men and women, victims of an orchestrated ritual of human sacrifice.
The reason we know they're sacrificial burials is because there are so many of them all at once, because nearly all of them had their hands tied behind their backs like this. And if you take a close look, you realize their ankles are also suspiciously close together. So it's pretty clear that they were bound hand and foot and didn't necessarily go willingly to their deaths.
This disturbing discovery challenged the very notion that Teotihuacan was a benevolent society, or that its people were devoted solely to peaceful pursuits. Is it possible that human sacrifice was part of the city's lifestyle? The answer to this intriguing riddle may be found in the powerful religious beliefs of the people of ancient Mesoamerica. Their attitude toward death becomes clearer when we understand how they perceived the nature of life. Unlike other religions in which life is looked upon as a gift from a supreme being, they believed that life was theirs simply because they forcefully took it from the gods.
They lived literally on stolen time. They believed that our bones were stolen from the gods of the underworld, and they were stolen. And basically, we tricked the gods of death. That's why we're still around. But we're going back. There's no doubt about it. And the trick is to keep life as long as possible. And so the gods here are not necessarily on our side. To survive here, we have to find ways to have them respond favorably to us.
For the Teotihuacanos, the most effective method of appeasing their gods may have been to return to them a measure of the human life that was originally taken from them. So the death of a select few humans may have ensured life for the rest of the people. But did those who were sacrificed willingly surrender their lives? Was this grisly destiny the accepted price for living in an otherwise benevolent society? Some scholars believe the leaders of Teotihuacan did not exact this ultimate price from their own citizens, but from outsiders. In religious crusades, Teotihuacano warriors would venture out in search of sacrificial victims in neighboring populations. Seeking divine guidance, they would look to the heavens and regulate their crusades according to the movement of the stars.
We believe that there was a practice of sacred warfare and ritual sacrifice based on the motions of the planet Venus. We jokingly call this Star Wars. And we can imagine that their astronomer priests waited watching the dawn sky to see if the planet would appear that day. We think that perhaps if they saw it, that they announced that it was time to conduct a certain type of battle or raid, the purpose of which was to obtain captives for later sacrifice.
The Teotihuacanos recorded ritual slayings in colorful murals, but the scenes never depict the actual sacrifice, only its aftermath. scholars are mystified as to why.
Instead of seeing people having their hearts removed or scenes of conquest, we simply see people holding up curved blades of obsidian with hearts on the end of it. For a while, people thought that this meant they were simply harvesting nopal cactus fruits, but instead it's suggesting that they would dispatch the victims as easily as dispatching or harvesting a fruit. They don't really care about your background, they don't care about your personality, they don't care if you're having a bad hair day. Basically, when you're captured by them, you're food for the gods.
Is it possible that the sacrificial victims in the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent may not have been outsiders, but loyal citizens of Teotihuacan itself? Scholars acknowledge another theory. The deaths may have been part of an early ritual dedicating the pyramid to the gods, following its construction.
The fascinating thing is, they're not dressed as foreigners. These don't seem to be captives from another area, but they're dressed as Teotihuacanos. In other words, we're looking at almost a self-sacrifice at the site, sacrificing their own warriors in this great dedication event.
No matter who these sacrificial victims were, what happened here some 1,800 years ago may have had profound consequences all across Mesoamerica for centuries to come. 1,000 years later, perhaps it became the inspiration for the sacred myth of creation among the Aztecs.
What they say about this site is this is where the gods killed themselves to make the sun come up. They were reborn as the sun and the moon. And following this, all the other gods killed themselves. So what the Aztecs are describing is a mass sacrifice at Teotihuacan. And you almost wonder whether these are reverberations created by the first initial event here at Teotihuacan. That even later peoples remembered this great mass sacrifice, and it became a part of their ideology as well.
Fact, over the centuries, may very well have become folklore. This one dramatic instance of mass human sacrifice may therefore be at the core of the enduring mystique of Teotihuacan. Yet violence and death would come in many forms here. When we return, the tragic story of Montezuma, all-powerful monarch of the Aztecs, and his fateful obsession with Teotihuacan. Today, Teotihuacan exudes a mesmerizing sense of mystery, just as it did 500 years ago. When the mighty Aztecs discovered this ruined city, they immediately fell under its spell. Among all the Aztecs, none was more spellbound by it than their supreme emperor, Montezuma. In the end, his obsessive desire to unlock the secret of Teotihuacan would lead him to commit one of history's most tragic mistakes. According to legend, every 20 days Montezuma would trek 30 arduous miles from his imperial capital to Teotihuacan. Like all Aztecs, he revered the ruin as the home of the gods. In supplication to them, he would perform the ritual of human sacrifice. But what drove Montezuma to make this pilgrimage? Could it have been because he wanted to solve the riddle of the city's unknown history? The gods alone could answer questions which tormented him. One god in particular would grip him in an almost hypnotic trance. His name was Quetzalcoatl. According to legend, Quetzalcoatl had long ago descended to earth in human form. A god of culture and learning, he had taught the people crafts and skills to better their lives. But after 20 years, he'd been betrayed.